What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show where we teach you how to make massive income, not just passive income, with your real estate investing business. This is your first time here. I am Mike DeHaan, here with your co-host, Dan Austin.
Yo.
And we talk about real estate investing, whatever we feel like, on these Wednesday episodes that we dub the Mike and Dan Show. And we are I am just getting back after a little week off with my parents in Colorado. And it's funny. I always like taking a little bit of time away because I tend to be kind of overbearing on the business sometimes, or have my fingers involved in a lot of different things. And stepping back a little bit always, I don't want to say it like shows like the leaks, but it shows like the little gaps that we do have. And it makes it easier to fix them, because I think a big thing that affects all business owners is that when you are working in your business as well as on the business, you don't realize how many things you're kind of directly influencing almost accidentally.
Yeah. And the other challenge with that is just from a leadership standpoint too, is when people are looking to you for an answer, even though they're ready to make the move, but they want your confirmation. When you're not there, they have to make those moves. And so then it kind of reignites that motivation and self-direction.
I mean, at least you would hope so. I mean, there's always the team members.
I think things still break, but
yeah. And then there's team members who their default is always to do nothing, which is a whole other problem.
Right, for sure. And I think that's like a leak or a hole. You're like, okay, well, that's a problem. Because generally speaking, when you ask people what to do when they want something, when they're asking you what they should do, and if you turn that around, they usually have the right answer. I would say 8 out of 10 times, if not 9 out of 10 times, when I've done that with people, they have the right answer.
Yeah, they just don't have the confidence or the confirmation to move forward with it.
Exactly.
And even this morning, we were having a whole debate with one of our sales guys about a deal that the person wanted money up front. The seller wanted money up front to be able to go buy the next house. And they were trying to figure out how to approach the situation. And we were basically like, well, what do you think we should do? He's like, well, I think what we need to do is we need to close, and we need to do a holdback of the funds. And then they can have like X amount of money released, then go buy the new house. And I was like, perfect. There you go. You already knew the answer. Why are we waiting 5 days to do this?
Yes. The alternative that the seller pitched, wasn't it like, give me all the cash up front for closing and then I'll move?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that's not going to work. And in your head, you know, it's not going to work. So step back, step by step, think through this. You know the answer.
Sure. And I think something that's easy to sort of forget when you're in this business and you're doing a real estate business at any sort of volume where you're doing a lot of transactions on a regular basis, is you tend to commoditize properties, right? Like, you don't really realize that the seller has probably bought and sold a couple properties in their life, maybe, right? So they don't even understand the possibilities of things like a holdback or like flexible closing, or, creative financing, or all the different things that us as investors need to bring forward and have them in our tool belt. And you tend to sort of take it for granted. And when they make these sort of outlandish asks, it can, I don't know, because sometimes throw people for a loop if you're not fully prepared for them, when there usually is a easy solution to whatever problem they're facing that is beneficial for us, without needing to do something silly like give them all the money for their house before you close.
I know. Before they close, and they can stay there as long as they need to until they find a place. Sounds like a great deal for us, right? Yeah, I think it's a big part of it is they see a problem. Right? They have a problem. They want to solve it. To your point, they don't have necessarily the knowledge and experience we do. So you need to see the problem through their eyes, through their lens, and understand that, but then explain it to them with your expertise and show them. Because I mean, you and I have always realized, I think we realized this early on. It's like, in this business, to be successful, you're solving problems and you're helping people who don't usually know or understand the situation they're in. And oftentimes they're in that situation because they have been unable to make a decision, and that inaction has put them into some level of distress. Not always, but a lot of times.
Most of the time. Yeah. Or like they're not an actionable enough person that they realize that there are challenges that they're going to have to deal with, and they just don't want to deal with them. Right. Even if they're not actually in distress, they look at it like, that sounds like a pain in the ass. I'd rather just pay you to take care of it by giving you the house at a discount, which does happen very, very often. In fact, I was talking to one of our partners today, who's up in Maine, and we were kind of going back and forth about this because he's worried about some of the ethical issues, being a realtor and, wholesaling and buying off market properties. And he's like, well, what happens when we buy it for 150, and then the next week I have the thing listed for like the low 200s. Like, aren't they gonna be like, why didn't they pay me that? I'm like, you think that they don't know what their property's worth, dude?
Yeah.
They're not
That dumb.
stupid. Yeah,
Yep.
like with the internet, they fully recognize that. Is like by buying at that 150 point, in this particular, when it's a rental property, it's a multi-unit. We're buying it with the tenants in there. Like, he recognizes that we're going to have to deal with that. He doesn't want to have to do it. I understand he has a personal relationship with his tenants. That's even worse, because he's going to have to go to this person that he has a relationship with and say, hey, I'm going to ask you to leave. He doesn't want to have that conversation. He's willing to pay us $60,000 to have that for him.
Yeah, that's right. You bring up a good point with the internet. Like, I love having Zillow because A, I can go and look at stuff really quickly, but also B, the sellers can look at it too. So they can be just as informed. You can have a conversation with them. You can really look at the root of their problems, and you guys can be on a level playing field. It's not like you're playing a game of cat and mouse. Like, oh, I wonder if they know that their property could be worth more. It's like, no, their problem is worth more than what they are willing to do to solve it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's, it's kind of it's a weird thing. I don't know if it's like realtors worry about that because they're like, I don't know, they firmly know like the real value, or if it's because of like the typical.
I think here's what I think it is. I think in the realtor space, especially now that like off market direct to seller has become kind of a just not, I want to say popular, but it's just more mainstream. There's more of us. There's more people like us doing this type of business on a sophisticated and scaled level that you can't ignore it anymore. And I think in that space, there's a lot of poo-pooing on wholesalers, right? We in the military, we used to call like the badge protectors. Like when you're going through to get like a certification or a badge, there's these guys that they want to make sure that only the best of the best in their eyes get the badge. So because they're wearing it, they want other people that look like them to wear it. And so in this, with the realtors, it's the same thing. They're protecting their interest by making sure everybody thinks wholesalers are poo-poo and that don't do business with them. They're doing things that are unethical and all these sorts of things. It's like agents, trust me, are doing plenty of unethical things.
I can tell that you have a 2-year-old at home because you just say poo-poo twice in the same sentence. Jesus Christ.
Sorry. A little doo-doo, a little poo-poo.
You've been to war, and now this is how you talk.
And now I talk like this. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And that's kind of what I was explaining to him too, is like realize that most realtors that are vastly against it, like they are threatened by the business model, and they're jealous of the money that you can make from these deals that they don't know how to monetize a certain way. And also too, it like realtors have their place. Like there's tons of people that don't want that discount. They don't have anything that they want to trade for that equity or any sort of situation where that makes sense.
Yep.
Perfect. They can go and sell the traditional way. That totally works out. But also most sellers that work with us, they are not a good fit for the on-market model.
Yeah,
right.
That's why they're working with us.
That's why
hands
they're
down.
working with us.
We have realtors that refer us to people like that because they're like, yeah, that's not going to work on market.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
the other incredible thing, and I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody or real estate agents, but I posted one of our Airbnbs for sale, and I just put, "Hey, willing to do like a seller carry, potentially kind of thing." And I've gotten quite a few comments and DMs and stuff like that about it. But the amount of agents and people working with agents that are trying to be investors that don't understand even what seller carry means, or like understands the basics of seller financing. And it's almost startling because this is also at the same time where I get a lot of questions from other people and agents, especially about sub 2. Like, how do we get these sub 2 deals closed? It's like, oh boy, you know what I mean? And really you're kind of, it's like exposing like the lack of knowledge from an investment standpoint. Not all agents are like that, but a good chunk of them that are trying to cater to investors. Cause let's be honest, investors are the one doing the most volume, buying and selling. And so it's a good partnership for a lot of agents, but you got to know your stuff.
I mean, like, I guess what don't they understand about it? And I guess to explain this deal for people. So we have this property that we had been renting to an Airbnb arbitrager for a while. For us, for like long term, it's not really like the best deal. We don't want to have it as an Airbnb on ourselves again because we had that previously and it was a lot of work. We got other shit to do. It's just not worth our time. And we are looking to sell it on a seller finance because we technically have a long-term debt, but we have a prepayment penalty on that. And so like if we go and we sell it with the prepayment penalty from this DSCR lender, we'll basically walk away with like almost no profit. And so it makes sense for us to sell it on terms to somebody with us carrying a note so that we can, recover our full equity in, a few years.
Essentially, we just we'll do what's called like a seller wrap or wraparound mortgage on it. So we'll keep the mortgage in place. It's kind of like a sub two, not a sub two, but they're taking that property sub two, that mortgage, plus we're wrapping around our equity in that and then selling it for a interest and amortization, just like we would. And then both mortgages, we get paid and then the original lender gets paid as well.
Exactly.
So what they don't understand about it is that that's possible. Is one of them that you could do that you could sell it. And it's like, what is the difference between sub two and a wrap? It's like having to explain that sort of stuff with people in the details. So it's like really, it's just, mind blowing to me that people have clients that they want to represent. They, of course, like I said, they know what sub two is. They've heard that term, of course, because Pace Mortgage's done a great job of telling everybody how great of a transaction style that is. And that's what every investor needs to do. But they don't know anything deeper than that.
Yeah. The thing that drives me crazy right now about all of those people, like not necessarily investors, change topic a little bit. I've noticed this is a reoccurring trend on all the sub two posts and videos and things like that, is they like to make these really bold statements like I bought this property and I'm making this amount of money. I bought it sub two and I didn't have to put any of my own money into it. And they don't give any sort of like disclosure around how much they actually had to bring to the table, even if it's from an investor or a friend or their dad or their freaking, I don't know, IRA, whatever it is. Is that not your own money? If it's a business that has a trustee, so they consider that like not their own money, probably. But like they completely leave out the most important part of the fact that to buy that house, they were still buying it above retail price and getting $50,000 to $100,000 from somebody else to buy it, but they're super proud of their 4% interest rate that they got.
I know.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, why do they keep doing it? And then and the thing that's so brilliant is with their whole like gator lending thing too. What these dumbasses do is they just borrow money from each other on these terms that aren't favorable to anybody. I know everybody's losing money.
I know.
Right. You have the person that bought the property that's not cash flowing. You have the investor that's now parked their cash and doesn't know when the fuck they're going to get back. It doesn't make any sense.
It's no money down real estate, dog. It's
somebody's money, but they just pretend like it's no money down. It doesn't make any sense. Even Pace did this post about how he bought this property with no money down, but then he threw in that he like paid the guy that brought it to him a $20,000 assignment fee. Who the fuck paid that?
Yeah, that came
from somebody.
Yeah. And this is one good point to make too about creative financing. Like the money has to come from somewhere. Yeah. Right. Like there's no other lender bringing the full sum of money for the purchase price. Like there's a loan and then there's a difference between the loan and the purchase price. Somebody is paying that. It's usually you.
Yeah. I mean, and if you have people that are willing to lend you money on favorable terms, that's great. But I mean, this is something that I'm still trying to comprehend. And somebody in our scale community asked about bringing on a speaker to come and talk to them about building your private money pipeline. Yep. And I'll be honest, like I have yet to find someone that actually has a good answer for how to do this organically. Like a lot of people will talk about how it's like, oh, I just post on Facebook and people offer to give me money. And unless you're like a really big name, I cannot see that happening.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't make sense. And so like my kind of joke response to him when he asked about that, I was like, okay, step one, come from a rich family or work in an industry where there's a lot of rich people. Yeah. And then step two, find the people from step one who don't have a good understanding of investments and real estate and convince them that an 8% return is actually a good deal for them. Right. Totally. Like, honestly, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah. The best way that I've found looking back, like with people wanting to invest is doing something for a while and telling people about it. And then eventually people see that you're successful over a long period of time. And they're like, okay, I kind of want to get in that game. Like I've had a few people recently in the last few months just call and say, hey, I would love to, give you some money. The problem is with a lot of people when that happens is they are like, well, let's just go 50-50. I'll bring part of the down payment. I'll be the money guy. It's like, well, part of the down payment is the money guy. Like I'm the money guy. You know what I mean? If that's the case. So like their terms, a lot of people, it's just like any other lead source, right? You have to work with and filter through and find the right people to work with when it's in the private lending space. Cause really ideally what you want, Mike, you mentioned is like, you want the rich people that don't know or don't want to invest in real estate themselves, but they'd want to be in the game. Totally. Like that's the goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and if you're doing like short-term stuff, you're doing flips and like people are going to like lend you at 8% for like a few months or whatever, like that's different, right? It's probably some extra cash, but you hear about some of these people that are buying these like long-term rentals with these people, they're paying like a 6 or 7% pref. I would say like, that's honestly a little bit shadier than being like the wholesaler who's lying to a seller about the value of their property to get a deal. Like what you're doing is you're lying to that person about their opportunity with that money.
What do they mean by that?
Your deal at 6%.
What do you mean they're being shady by getting the lender to give them a long-term loan?
By getting this random grandma to go and get a HELOC on her house, right? Or to like take out her retirement and give it to them at 6% so they can have this long-term rental property that they pay interest.
So they're basically trying to pitch the benefits of real estate, but really they're getting benefits of like a CD.
Exactly, right. And they use all these similar sort of like bullshit sales tax of like, oh, well, you're going to get a check every month. You don't get that with the stock market. It's like, oh, it's secured by real estate. It's going to be secured all the time. Like the stock market can go down, all these different things. Valid statements. But also if you look at the true opportunity cost for that person and you are honestly trying to convince them that giving you long-term money at below inflation is a good deal. It's like you're just as much of a crook as the wholesaler that's lying to a seller about the value of their house.
Yeah, you especially because like in my opinion, you want your investors to be able to sustain a loss because that's always a risk, but also be informed enough to be able to make a good decision. Yeah. You know, because it's really easy to go and get your grandma to loan you money on a shitty deal because she's going to trust you. They're a lot of times private lenders are lending in you. They're lending to you, not to the asset, right? They see you, they trust you. And that's why when I say people, you do something well enough, long enough, people will start saying, I want to participate. Can I loan you money? And that's how a lot of private lenders come in. But like, if you take your grandmother's HELOC money for her whatever mobile home that she lives in, and now she's gonna be out. I don't know. I'm trying to paint a really bad, morbid picture here, but like, you know what I mean. And you lose it on a flip. That's a problem. You know, I have a friend that that happened to, right? Loaned money on a mobile home and never got their money back.
Did he actually not get that money back? I know we talked about this briefly.
Different guy. Yeah. I don't know. Actually, I should ask Troy that if he's doing well, but yeah, he's had his money out for a while with that guy too. And so there's certain things where you're like the deals there's risk associated with them, I guess is what I'm saying. And if they're not able to understand that, then you're being a little unfair by not sharing those risks and helping them understand and analyze the deal.
Totally. And like, honestly, if you're being truthful to your private investors, what you can offer them should match up with what their goals actually are, right? And it should actually get them an amount of money that makes sense, and looking at their time horizon, what their needs are. It's just like working with a seller. They have their goals and you need to match up what you can offer them as a borrower with their debt, and I think it kind of gets out of hand. And this is something else that's been really interesting recently. I've been getting hit up on Instagram regularly about this. Is people asking us where we get our private money lenders from. Like there's like some like weird source, or like how we were able to get so much private money that we, bought so many rentals over a short period of time. And I tell people, it's like, oh, we use hard money loans and most of it was our own cash. People like lose their fucking minds.
They don't believe you?
That's how it went. They don't believe me. Like, honestly, like that's literally what we did is we had an active enough wholesale and flipping business that we used our own funds and we used hard money lenders a lot. But the whole OPM, other people's money thing has gotten so out of hand. There's a ton of people that don't even consider hard money an option.
Yeah, it's a great option. I mean, it's a
great option.
It's helped us build a great portfolio, do lots of flips, do lots of projects, double close on things.
And I don't know why it's kind of turned that way. People have this weird aversion to like institutional money to the point that like I was even talking to somebody else earlier today and they were saying that they have a line of credit and they're using that to close on properties and then they're going to hold on to it in that line of credit while they go and refinance into long-term debt. Okay. But their concern was like, well, it's going to eat up my whole line of credit. And I was like, well, dude, what you do is you go and you get a hard money loan. You use that line of credit to cover your down payment and then your monthly holding. And then you have like 90% of your line of credit left. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Didn't even want to consider that. He was like, nope, not going to do it. I'm like, what are you concerned about? The line of credit holder is still going to steal your primary residence just like the hard money lender is.
Right.
It's
exactly.
the same thing. Yeah,
that's an interesting perspective because I guess there are quite a few people that are talking and there's always like this, it doesn't even get me going, like this dick measuring contest about like, oh, I can get it for 8-1 or my lender does 7-2. It's like, who cares? Like if I'm paying 12% interest or 8% interest, like I'm going in there with a purpose. I'm underwriting it with that. And yeah, so maybe at the end of the deal, it's, with the average household price, it's a few $1,000s difference, but people get so wrapped around the axle on like how much their monthly interest is. And I get it. You want it to be as cheap as possible. So if you can get it, but also I don't want to go have a colonoscopy to get an 8% interest rate when I can just go to my local hard money lender who I know very well that's going to give me the loan, no questions asked within 48 hours. And I can keep going and buy 3 more that week.
Totally. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I feel like in the past little bit, it's gotten extra out of hand with people that are pursuing the OPM, other people's money model. It's because you keep seeing all these like dorks on social media, like these like 24-year-old kids. They're like, I bought 10 million in apartments with none of my own money. And it's like, yeah, but your dad is a developer. Like,
right.
What are you talking about?
Yes. Your dad bought it.
Yeah. Have you seen that? There's this, it's like, I don't know, TikTok or Reel, whatever that's been going around. So the stand-up comedian, and I should look this up.
Oh, I have. Who? Yes, I know what you're about to say.
But he's on stage and he's like this young kid, and he's like, you're pretty young. He's like, what do you do? And he goes, I own a real estate development business. And he goes, you own a real estate development business? Like, you're super young. And he goes, oh well, I work for my dad's real estate development business. And he was like, this motherfucker looked me dead in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
And said, I own a real estate development business. No, your dad does, and you work for him. Like that is very, very different.
That. It's so different. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah,
that's
about it. That sums it up. Yeah. That sums it up. Yeah. And it's like just using other people's money is also not that easy. Like just
no, it's not. And people trivialize it, and then they see like Pace talk about how all of those people are like these other people. It's like, yeah, because they built a community and a brand where they have now gone and convinced a bunch of other people to come in there and invest with them because they realize that it's more difficult.
Yeah.
And again, if it aligns with the investors' goals, that's fine. Like we have a debt fund, right? We pay people out and 9% pref on that, but it's usually short term, right? They're looking to park money for a year. Yep. That makes sense. So not looking to park money into your rental property for the next 5 to 10 years while you sit there and like try to figure out what to do with it because you've never bought a property before. Like that doesn't make any sense.
That's not a good idea. Yeah. And I think for us with using private lending and other people's money is like, we've always had a way to pay them off. Like, right. Like we've never taken more money than we really could afford to take. Where I think some people get in trouble is they do a private money loan for one property and then the next one, and then they've got 3. They have no way to even cover those properties if something goes wrong, let alone if one thing goes wrong. So for us, I feel like we dipped our toes in it, and we had a private lender starting out, great friend of ours. He's awesome dude, awesome lender. And anytime we needed money, he was able to fund deals, but we always had in the back pocket, like, hey, if something goes sideways here, we'll make sure that he's made whole and we have the ability to exit. It's one thing to say, like, I take care of other people's money better than my own. It's another thing to actually do it and pay people and we've done that.
We've done that.
Yeah. He, in that private lender that I just talked about, like, he was like, hey, I need my money back. Our year's up and I'd really like to not extend. And we're like, perfect. And we wrote him a check.
Yeah. And it wasn't fun. We had to go and like open these lines of credits and figured it out. But that's the, promise that we made there. So I don't know. It's a weird part of the space right now that I think is, I want to say, like, slightly alarming, because I feel like it's similar to a lot of the creative financing things or stuff I do think people are doing, where you have people that are not fully responsible or don't fully understand the seriousness of what they're doing, that are going out there and trying to figure out how to hack the system. Yeah. Right. So
there's no fast way, man. I don't know what to tell you. The longer I'm in the game, the more I realize that it just takes time.
It does, and don't be afraid to use institutional money. Like there's these businesses that are out there that want to give you money and see how it's going to cost you a little bit. But honestly, if 12-1 versus 8-1 are the difference between your deal being profitable and not, then you should probably not buy that deal.
It's probably not
really
a deal.
freaking tight.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
So
great point.
Anyway, so cool. Speaking of all that, do we have, where are we at with our commercial deal? Do we have our loan figured out? This is, speaking of debt, let's make this the theme of this one, but we're buying a commercial property right now. And if you listen to my Friday Focus last week, I talked about some lessons learned with this, but the whole debt process with it has been different. Because we've had, apparently when you do commercial stuff, there's so many different options you can get from traditional lenders. We found one that says they're going to work with us and they're going to give us construction funds and like different things, but they're asking for tons of different material with it. So where are we at with all that stuff?
Yeah, we're just still waiting to hear back. The banks are closed on Mondays because it's President's Day holiday.
It's been like a month.
I know. So the last I pinged her the end of last week was that your and my financials were complicated. And so they had to go through it because we have several K1s from different businesses, and, to a smaller community bank, we're probably like the freaking Wild West Cowboys when they see our shit. Like they love our idea. They know we have money, right? I told her, I was like, we could honestly, if we have to, we could just pay cash for this. But we're trying to avoid doing that. Because we don't want to hurt liquidity, because we don't, we're stabilizing a property right now. We've got other things in the pipeline. And so it's just a matter of getting them to sign off at the board. So I'm hoping first thing tomorrow morning, I'm going to get an update, because we kind of need that, because our due diligence period ends tomorrow at 5 p.m.
I know. Yeah, because if we don't have kind of clear to go, I don't know if we have enough time yet to get the funding lined up.
I know. Exactly. So I think we'll have to either get an extension on the due diligence or figure something out. But here in the next literally 24 hours. So, nothing like this living on the seat of your pants right there. So,
I mean, we've always done that though. That's kind of part of being in the off market world, is you deal with weird things as they come through.
Totally. Yeah. And this is no different, right? It's no different. This is a commercial. This is a good example to talk about. So this is a commercial property. Deal was brought to us, and it's owned by a terrible landlord that Mike and I have, done business-ish with over the years.
We walked a property that was his, that was the worst property we've ever seen.
Worst property. And he basically was like, I'm not selling it for any less than 200 or whatever his price was. It was stupid. It was worth like 75. I don't even remember what our offer was. Anyways,
probably 50.
It was probably 50. Yeah. We're stepping over the needles and holes in the roof, everything. So this commercial property was probably performing when he bought it, but is a year ago is when he bought it, I think a year or 2 years ago. And now it is underperforming. It's got 3 tenants of the 11 available spaces. But we're working through a plan to reposition it as an office space and trying to figure out how to maximize the rents and reduce the expenses, of course, because it's commercial. We are going to base this on net operating income. And so we want to be able to raise the value to at least $1 million. We're paying right now, we're under contract at 585. So I would say $1 million would be like our break point of that's at least where we want to be in the next 12 months from a valuation standpoint. But we don't know anything about this, right? This is like when we bought our first deal, or we started wholesaling. I remember back buying my first rental property. I didn't know the end result. I had kind of an idea. And even then I had more of a framework. With commercial, it's just a little bit, more unknown. Also at a time where in the news, everybody's talking about how office space is dead. It's commercial office space is not a good idea, this and that, where we're kind of taking a gamble on this, but I think it's a calculated gamble. Point being though, is it's I don't know. At some point, you just have to do it and learn from it. I don't think we'll lose money per se, but we just might not make as much as we want to make. That's the way I look at it from a risk analysis standpoint.
Yeah, well, not in the short term, right? And we kind of talked about this as well. As one of the things that's challenging for us with this is on the residential side, especially because we've done so many flips, or the cycle time is so quick on the rehab, being able to rent it out. We're used to being able to make all of our money and get things stabilized within a couple of months. Whereas that commercial stuff just is going to take longer. And this property, it's in a great location in Spokane. It's where I would call is kind of like the path of progress for commercial assets like this. Because right now it's a little ways from downtown. People are leaving downtown. They want to be close to their home. There are a lot of smaller businesses up in the area. And it's I don't think that we would regret owning property in that specific spot. You know,
Right.
it doesn't make sense for like the office space. Like you look at the building, it's like, well, I don't know. It could be like a medical office. It could be a dental office. Like it has all those vibes and set up to do
Mm-hmm.
that. It just needs to be outfitted appropriately and marketed to the appropriate person,
Yep.
you know? And there's so many different things you could do that make it harder to analyze. Cause like with a residential property, you're like, cool, I'm
So
going to
easy.
put tenants in here. I'm going to do it as like a midterm rental, might be a little bit different versus a short-term rental versus a long-term rental. You know, we never really strayed into all the other weird niche stuff that you can do with residential stuff. But I mean, it just feels like there's more gray areas. And the difference is from like residential, which will be like 20 or 30% more rent if you go a different way. This is like 2x. Right?
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's a huge difference.
Absolutely. And it really just goes back to the point I wanted to make was like, this is what we do in the residential space with our wholesaling off market business, right? If you're listening to this and that's the game you're in, or you want to be in it, this is what you do. You have to take a leap. You're going to go in and buy an underperforming asset. Your job is to take an underperforming asset, which is how you can get it at a discount and make it performing. That's it. That's what it is. And so for us, this is just another underperforming asset that we have to kind of figure out. And to your point is it's going to be a longer cycle time than we're used to because it is commercial. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Everything's just, you know, leasing it. There's, I don't know, for every 100 people looking to buy a new house, there's probably like 1 or 2 looking for an office space, if that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Right. You know, I mean, yeah, but the thing is, it'll be more sticky. Hopefully, like so a bunch of different stuff. But the money
there's a
piece
lot
is
of
just
there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's different. You can't just go get a hard money loan like that. We found that.
Yeah, I mean, most hard money loans won't even lend on it. You know, so I'm proud to announce we are looking for investors. If you wanted to take a HELOC on your home and give us
Other people's money,
$585,000 at a 6% pref, we'll pay you back in 5 years.
For those of you that don't think we don't script these shows, this proves it right there. That was the whole lead up into this.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's secured by a real asset. It's going to be fixed. You'll get a check every single month. Yeah. You know,
there's even
buy
a guy
property,
in the basement illegally renting.
Oh, shit. Yeah. That's the other thing too with the other people's money stuff, which drives me crazy is I'm seeing these like C-level investor gurus and like they repeating these posts over and over again. It's like, don't buy real estate, just be the bank instead. Give me money at 8 to 10% and don't have to deal with any other bullshit. And I'm like, come on, bro. Like,
I know.
Like, what are you doing? It's always random people that I'm like, have you actually done deals? I can't tell. I really don't think you have. If you weren't,
it's usually less, as we found out,
dude. Like always,
when you're talking to the big players, and they don't really have stories that match anything that you've done, you're like, okay, you've done quite a bit less.
Totally. It's funny. Cole Red Johnson, who is a very A-level operator that was on our show a little while back. He made this post, which I thought was really funny. Let me find it really quick. But I felt like this was just so on brand with how we currently feel. And of course, now my freaking Instagram's not going to load. But it was basically like back when I started real estate, there was like 100 influencers that I wanted to connect with, or I wanted their business. He said, now that I've actually grown a business and met most of these people, I realized there's actually only like 2.
It's so true.
Oh my God,
it's so true.
It's so funny. But anyway, cool. Anything else on business side that we need to go into? I think we can get off our high horse about.
Yeah, I don't think so.
OPM now, but
yeah, I don't know what's going on. What's fresh? Closing deals. The year's going well, actually. I mean, what are we in February? I mean, I feel like this spring might be a fun time
over the weekend. Yeah, 20 on the year over the weekend. So I mean, we're 7 weeks into the year. We already got 20 deals. I won't be upset about that. We get them all closed out. We have a couple that are on the rocks, but for the most part, they all seem doing pretty good.
I mean, always something. It seems like we're pushing things left or right on the calendar, but that's okay. That's just to be expected. You get these things signed, you got to push them out a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 3 months. You never know.
Yeah. I will say the thing that is good about just getting that clip is looking at our metrics and stuff. The marketing has been a little bit better, but not like way better, but our signing rate is much better, which means the team is performing well, which is always like the big indicator, right? Because a lot of them too have been like longer term follow-ups and pretty challenging negotiations. So it's good to see the sales team purring along, which is always kind of one of the hardest parts of this whole business to get that optimized.
Yeah, that's super valid, especially because like we have a sales team that, grows and ebbs and flows. And I feel like right now we have a great team they're all at a really good spot in their development set, right? They've all got the skills, and they've all kind of heard the stories of how follow-up matters. They're learning the skills. That's the other part about this stuff is you can be a A+ salesperson, but you got to learn some skills in real estate to be able to think on your feet and in solution, right? In the moment. It's helpful.
Yeah. Which is always more challenging than you would think. And when you've been in this for a while, or you've been studying real estate like intensely, like realize that most people that apply to work for you as an acquisitions manager, even if they have real estate experience, if you're the business owner, I guarantee you they are not as like in the weeds as you are about it. They probably had some sales role in the past, because if they were, they wouldn't be applying to work for you. They would have their own business.
Absolutely.
And it's so challenging. So cool. Anyways, all right. Yeah. We'll wrap that up there. So cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate all of your time. Shoot us a follow on Instagram. I'm at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorManDan. And if you want our free course to teach you how to do subject twos the correct way and not the the guy with the peace sign on his head way, go to collectingkeys.com/sub2 and you can grab that there. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you.